As Vladimir Putin issues fresh nuclear threats, has Volodymyr Zelensky just torched one of his prized warships in port, turning a dockyard into the latest high-stakes battleground? After Ukrainian drones reportedly gutted the brain of the Corvette Boykiy, is Moscow now rattling its nuclear saber louder than ever to compensate for the humiliation at its own naval base? With a Russian warship burning inside a supposedly safe port, is Putin answering this symbolic blow with a nuclear-laced warning meant to remind Kyiv and NATO how far he claims he can still go? Has the Kronstadt strike stunned Moscow's military, as images of a scarred Russian corvette send the message that even ships near St. Petersburg are no longer beyond Ukraine's reach? Is Zelensky's latest revenge strike on the Russian fleet now colliding with Putin's ultimate card, as the Kremlin couples battlefield setbacks with escalating nuclear talk? Amid renewed nuclear-tinged threats from the Kremlin, Ukrainian drones have set a Russian warship ablaze in port, showing that Kyiv is still willing to hit high-value targets far from the front line. New satellite imagery suggests the Russian Corvette Boykiy's upper superstructure has probably burned down, indicating extensive damage above the main deck. Skysat images revealed dark smoke plumes and deep fire scars across Boykiy's upper superstructure, underlining that the blaze was intense and spread across key sections of the ship. Analysts point out that the ravaged superstructure houses vital command posts, radar arrays and communications gear, making this damage potentially far more serious than a simple hull puncture. Reports warn that destroying these systems could completely cripple Boykiy's control and combat capacity, effectively turning a modern missile corvette into a powerless hulk even if the hull remains afloat. On June 3rd, Ukrainian drones struck the Russian corvette inside the heavily guarded Kronstadt naval base, a location long seen as one of the Navy's safer rear area facilities. At the time of the attack, the corvette was sitting in the Voleshchinsky dry dock near St. Petersburg for scheduled repairs, making it a fixed, exposed target rather than a maneuvering ship at sea. Footage shows at least 2 unmanned aircraft slamming into the ship's hull or superstructure in quick succession, before flames erupt and appear to engulf much of the vessel. Military analysts have compared the Boykiy blaze to the 2021 fire that gutted her sister corvette Prvorny in St. Petersburg. Boykiy is a Project 20380 multi-purpose missile corvette, designed for anti-surface, anti-submarine and limited air defense roles in Russia's near seas. Her listed home port is Baltiysk in the Kaliningrad region, anchoring her to Russia's Baltic Fleet on the exposed enclave between NATO states. The ship entered service in May 2013, giving Russia just over a decade of operational use before this latest attack severely damaged her. Boykiy displaces roughly 2,200 tons, placing her in the light surface combatant class that Russia relies on for coastal and regional missions. She can reportedly reach speeds of up to 27 knots, fast enough to maneuver in Baltic waters and operate with other fleet units when fully functional. A typical crew for Boykiy is about 100 personnel, including around 14 officers, all of whom rely on the now damaged systems in the superstructure to fight the ship effectively. The corvette mounts a single A1 9100mm naval gun on the bow, giving it a versatile weapon for engaging surface targets, shore positions and some aerial threats at close range. 2 AK-630M 30mm close-in weapon systems provide last-ditch defense against incoming missiles, drones and small boats, forming a key part of the ship's protective shield. Boykiy carries up to 8 Kh-35 Orun anti-ship cruise missiles, which are intended to threaten enemy surface combatants and shipping across significant ranges. Her Redut vertical launch cells can fire up to a dozen air defense missiles, designed to intercept aircraft and some inbound weapons when integrated with working radar systems. The ship is also equipped with 324mm anti-submarine torpedoes, giving it the ability to hunt and engage submarines in coastal and open water environments. Boykiy can operate AKA-27 naval helicopter and Orlan-10 UAVs, extending her reach for anti-submarine warfare, surveillance and targeting far beyond the line of sight from her own deck. In a major escalation, Russia's deputy foreign minister has issued what amounts to a direct nuclear threat, openly warning about the circumstances in which Moscow could resort to atomic weapons. Sergei Ryabkov specifically warned Ukraine and its Western allies against any aggressions toward Russia, hinting that such actions could provoke a catastrophic response. He made these remarks on June 3rd on the sidelines of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, using an economic showcase to deliver a strategic warning. Sergei Ryabkov said, and I quote, "As regards us, those hypothetical extreme situations that may trigger the use of these weapons were outlined. in detail in Russia's military doctrine and the fundamentals of Russia's state policy on nuclear deterrence. To put it somewhat straightforwardly, these documents send a signal that encroachments on Russia or its territorial integrity by aggressors, including those who may possess such weapons, could prompt us to use these weapons in the worst-case scenario. End quote. His warning came as Ukrainian drones struck both energy and military sites in St. Petersburg on June 3, linking the nuclear rhetoric directly to fresh attacks on Russian soil. The drone strikes landed just hours before Russia's flagship economic forum began, overshadowing the event and exposing vulnerabilities inside a showcase city. Several long-range drones crashed into oil facilities, with loud blasts heard across neighborhoods and plumes of smoke seen rising over the city. The governor of St. Petersburg said the Kirovsky and Krasnoselsky districts were among the areas targeted, confirming that key industrial zones were hit. Ukraine also reportedly struck near the Kronstadt naval base and a shipyard in the wider Leningrad region, extending the attack to critical military infrastructure. Video clips circulating online showed what appeared to be a Ukrainian drone hitting a Russian-guided missile ship, which then caught fire as flames spread across its deck. These strikes took place just about 10 miles from the economic forum venue where Putin is scheduled to speak on June 5, bringing the war perilously close to his stage. This was only the latest attack in a long string of tit-for-tat strikes between Ukraine and Russia, each round pushing both sides closer to a point of no return. The war has claimed more lives after another deadly incident struck Russian-controlled Crimea. Russian authorities said the strike left multiple casualties and triggered an emergency response in Simferopol. The announcement came directly from Crimea's Russian-installed leadership as details of the attack began to emerge. First responders rushed to the scene as officials worked to assess the damage and assist those affected. Sergei Aksyonov said, and I quote, "As a result of an enemy strike on non-residential buildings in Simferopol, 3 people were killed and 7 were wounded, according to preliminary reports. First responders are working on the site." Unquote. Moscow blamed Ukrainian forces for the strike and said non-military locations were among those affected. Ukraine has not responded to the accusations, while independent confirmation of the incident remains unavailable. A Ukrainian drone struck a passenger bus in the city of Yenikievo on June 3, according to initial reports from Russian-installed authorities in the area. The head of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic said 7 civilians were killed in the strike, underscoring the human toll of attacks along contested front lines. Denis Pushilin added that 11 other passengers on board suffered injuries of varying severity, with some reportedly in critical condition after the explosion and ensuing fire. The bus was traveling on a long-distance route from Moscow to Simferopol in Crimea when it was hit, suggesting the attack occurred on a major transit corridor used by civilians. Videos and images from the scene showed the vehicle almost completely destroyed by the blaze, with only the charred frame and scattered debris left recognizable as a bus. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova condemned the strike, describing it as a deliberate hunt for people and accusing Kiev of terror tactics against civilians. Russian media outlets alleged that Ukraine had carried out similar attacks on highways before, claiming a pattern of drone or missile strikes on civilian road traffic in Russian-controlled areas. Kiev, however, has repeatedly denied deliberately targeting civilians during the conflict, insisting that its drone and missile operations are aimed at military or logistical objectives. The incident came one day after large-scale Russian strikes on what Moscow described as military targets inside Ukraine on June 2, in a wider escalation of cross-border attacks. Those Russian strikes left at least 21 people dead and more than 100 injured in Ukraine, according to local authorities there, highlighting how both sides' operations are exacting a heavy civilian price. Kiev, Dnipro, and Kharkiv were among the cities targeted in a major overnight missile and drone barrage. Officials said the attacks damaged residential areas, commercial properties, and key infrastructure facilities. The city of Dnipro suffered some of the heaviest losses during the latest Russian assault. Missile and drone attacks in Dnipro left multiple people dead and several others wounded. Images emerging from the city showed shattered homes and buildings partially reduced to rubble. Rescue teams remained on the ground, searching damaged structures for possible survivors. The strikes came amid fresh Russian vows to retaliate for the recent attack in Staroselsk. Kiev faced repeated waves of drone attacks as Russian forces carried out a large-scale overnight assault. Residents spent hours under alert as explosions and air raid sirens rang out across the capital. One residential building sustained major damage after being hit in what officials described as a double-tap strike. The attack triggered multiple fires at business premises, construction areas, and fuel stations across the city. Emergency crews were deployed across Kiev after the strikes left at least 20 people injured. The latest attacks came just days after President Zelensky warned that Russia was preparing a new large-scale strike against Ukraine. Zelensky said Ukrainian intelligence had detected signs that Moscow was planning another major wave of missile and drone attacks. The Ukrainian president also expressed concern over shortages of air defense systems needed to intercept ballistic missile threats. As the assault unfolded, Poland scrambled its air force along with Allied aircraft to safeguard NATO airspace near the conflict zone. The new barrage came only days after Russia launched one of its biggest attacks, firing 90 missiles and 600 drones across Ukraine.